All right. Hey, hi guys. How are you doing today? It is a beautiful day in the neighborhood. And I just wanted to do a quick tutorial on how to follow up with the candidate after the client has rejected the candidate's resume. And it may not be just after the client has rejected the candidate's resume, but it also may be after the client has rejected a candidate after the actual interview process has taken place, right? And so I actually got a message. This was actually one of the questions that was coming through during the Q&A call on Wednesday, but it never really came through. Hey Ash, hey Latasha, and until after the call was over. And so what I wanted to do was just kind of come back because I felt like this was something that many staffingpreneurs may be having an issue with. Just feeling good or feeling good about rejecting a candidate is never an easy thing, right? Because when you take the time to find a candidate, to source a candidate, find a candidate, track the candidate. Hey Jamie, you taking time to go out and to get to know this candidate, interview this candidate, screen the candidate. You're building this relationship with the candidate. You get excited about the submittal. You submit them to the client, and then they say, not right. They're like, this is not a good fit for us. Now, this training is not about why the candidate was rejected, but it's more about what do you do once the candidate has been rejected, and how do you find ways to reject that candidate in a way that you're still able to keep the relationship with them, right? Because we're under the impression, or some of my newer staffingpreneurs are under the impression, when you reject a candidate, that means the candidate doesn't want to continue to have a relationship with you, and it's not like that at all. So first things first, really quickly. So Jamie says, nope, I felt such rejection as a candidate. You are the bomb. This training is great. Perfect. And yeah, the candidate definitely feels rejected. And a lot of times they don't understand why they've been rejected. So it's kind of a tricky situation. I'm just going to be 100% honest with you when it comes to candidate rejection, because if you say too much, the candidate can get pissed off and decide to sue you or to sue the company. If you don't say enough, then the candidate feels like, well, why? And then they may not want to work with you anymore because they feel like that you are not really, cheering for them, right? Or not really there to assist them. So what I would like to say to you is this. If you've received feedback from the hiring manager, and in many instances, you will not get feedback. So most of the time, you will not get feedback. Let me just say that. They'll just say, nope, we don't want this candidate, right? It's going to be your job to really push that hiring manager to say, okay, we didn't like this candidate because of this, or we didn't like this candidate because of that. It depends on what they say that will determine what you will say to your candidate. I do never say lie, okay? However, and I'm just going to go based on my experience. If the candidate had like a very bad body odor and the hiring manager couldn't take it, and that was like the feedback, I probably would not come right out and tell the candidate the reason they got rejected is because they had body odor. I would probably tell the candidate, I didn't get any feedback. I'm just going to keep it real. I haven't gotten any feedback just yet. As soon as I get some feedback, I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. I'll get it to you. In the meantime, let's work on getting you another opportunity. And what happens at that point, and I'm just giving you like a worst case scenario. What happens at that point is I would bring that candidate back into my office, maybe in another couple of days or a week or so. And then you want to have a conversation about body odor, but you don't want to relate it to why they were rejected, right? So something like that. If the hiring manager rejected the candidate because they did not have enough experience, you can tell the candidate that. let them know, hey, the hiring manager decided to move on to someone else because they felt like you didn't have enough experience for this particular opportunity. Now, what will typically happen is the candidate will come back and say, oh, well, yeah, I do have that experience. Oh, I do have the experience that they're saying that I don't have. Well, then to me, it kind of becomes an issue because it's like, why didn't you say that in the beginning? Also, once a client declines a candidate, typically that's the way it stays, unless you can take that information that the candidate has given to you, rewrite their resume, not the whole resume, but go in and show the experience that that candidate definitely has and rewrite the write-up and then resubmit. You can do that as well. Now, I've done that before, and the hiring manager was pissed that I did it. And he told me, when I reject, that means it's a rejection. Hey, Tori, it means it's a rejection. However, he said, I'm really glad that you did push back and bring this candidate back because she's definitely someone we want to take a closer look at. So he was pissed, but at the same time, he was very thankful. So, excuse me. So just be mindful of that. Got my Staffingpreneur mug here. Some nice hot tea because I'm talking all the time. Hey, Renee. And so be mindful of that. If the client says, I don't want this candidate because they're overqualified. Overqualifications are very interesting because it's nothing you can really do about that. You can't dumb down somebody's experience after they've already been submitted. If you want to attempt to resubmit them, you can. However, typically if somebody's overqualified, it typically means that you have not done your job, because there's no reason for you to submit someone who's overqualified for a position. Now, sometimes candidates feel rejected when the recruiter does not want to submit them to the hiring manager. That's a whole different topic. But I will tell you that as a recruiter, it is your job to screen candidates and to match them with the opportunity. So if you don't feel comfortable with matching a candidate and you need to go back and reject them and tell them, hey, go back and tell them, hey, listen, the requirement or the client is looking for this, and this. When you and I went through the matchmaking process, there were things that did not match with you. This may not be the right opportunity for you, but that's why you're working with me. While you're continuing your job search, it's also my job to go in and connect with other employers who may be a good fit. If something comes across my desk randomly, you'll be the first person I call. And I will, as I'm talking to clients, I will make an introduction of your resume if that's something that you're comfortable with. Your job is not to market candidates, however, on a consistent basis, because typically you should have job orders kind of flowing in. And since you have job orders flowing in, you're working on those. However, I like to have one candidate per month that I'm marketing, that I'm skill marketing. So maybe that's the candidate. But the only way that you should really be skill marketing a candidate, this is a whole nother training, but is if they are very unique, right? If they are not all over the job boards, not all over social media, if they're a passive candidate, a referral, something like that, then yes, you would market. Rejection. So if the client comes back and says, I don't want to hire, this is after the interview, I don't want to hire this candidate because we're choosing someone else. You can let the candidate know that, hey, the client chose another candidate, and I'll go and get more feedback on why he didn't choose you first. You can say that. Whether you get the feedback or not, that's just kind of your way to keep that relationship going without offending the candidate. If the client comes back and says, I did my own reference checking and I found out that candidate sucked and I don't want to hire them, do not tell the candidate that ever, 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 ever. Okay. Just tell the candidate you're waiting on feedback. As soon as you get it, you'll get it back to them. But at this point, the client has decided to move on with someone differently. Okay. So, and like I said, it's kind of tricky Because if it could get very crazy, especially when you're dealing with people and you don't really necessarily know what their mental state of mind is. Some people are freaking psycho, and you kind of learn that when you're in the recruiting and staffing industry. Most people are normal. Most people. And but my main line rejection is, you know what, the client decided to move on with someone else. I will get some feedback, and when I do, I will be sure to share it with you. In the meantime, I want you to continue with your job search, and on my end, I know what my job is, and that's to support you in your job search as well. So that is my main rejection for just about everything, okay, when I'm talking about candidate submittals. And most candidates are not going to hone on you like, did you get feedback? Did you get feedback? Did you get feedback? Although I've had one or two in my career that's just kind of been like, D, what did they say? D, what did they say? But that's also kind of a flag if they're going on aggressively about what they said. Some people are stalkers, like mini stalkers, so I just kind of keep it like that. If I got good feedback, if I got bad feedback, I never give it to them unless I can do it in a way that's not immediate. Like, again, so like body odor, toothpaste on their teeth, not dressed appropriately, different things like that. I still wouldn't tell the candidate that's why they got rejected for that position immediately, but I will come back like the next day or the day after and maybe bring them into my office, or maybe I would have just an additional conversation, because as a recruiter, you are also a counselor, right? You are also a coach, right? So you just give them a call back the next day or whatever and just say, hey, I know you're interviewing at a number of places, and I noticed something when you came into my interview, and I just wanted to ask, what are you wearing? What are you wearing to your interview? Take a picture, send it to me. I want to make sure that you're dressed professionally. So that doesn't mean that they don't even know that it was why the client rejected. They just feel like you're reaching out to them and being a true hey Lydia, being a true, professional, like a true coach, right? But you don't want them to go on many other interviews the same way. You want to assist them with landing an opportunity. If they land a new opportunity and you still have a relationship with them, then that gives you an opportunity to do business in this new company, right? It gives you an opportunity to place them in their next position. It gives you an opportunity to network with them in regards to their networking circle, right? So you got to be careful with the rejection, because 100% you want to keep the relationship. But at the same time, you definitely want to make sure that you are doing your job as the coach, as a recruitment coach or a career coach that may be better for your candidates, and letting them know, hey, Deshaun, and letting them know that, hey, here's some things you may want to change in order to be successful in this space. Oh, also, if there are a lot of laws that are going around or that are coming up in regards to social media, and there are a lot of companies that are rejecting candidates based on their social media profiles. If you have not heard me say this before, please hear me say it now. If you have a candidate that you are submitting to a client, you, staffingpreneur, I'm not supposed to point. Staffingpreneurs, I want each and every one of you to check their LinkedIn profile, check their Facebook profile. Those are the two main ones that hiring managers are looking at on a consistent basis. But understand, if they are Twitter fanatics, they're probably going to check their Twitter feed. If they're YouTube fanatics, they're probably going to check their YouTube feed. So it's going to be totally up to you to decide how far you want to go. But at the bare minimum, you should be checking their Facebook and their LinkedIn profile. You should not ever submit a candidate without checking their YouTube or Facebook profile to make sure that they're not like chugging it back, or their boobies are out, or profanity, or racial comments. A lot of people getting fired right now over racial comments. Different things like that. If your candidate has those things on their Facebook profile, you may want to encourage them to make their profile private. That could also hurt them because sometimes companies want to see who a person is, who is this person that we're bringing into our culture. Because remember, smoking weed, Renee, that's another one, smoking weed. Although you've got to be careful with that as well, because right now, even though it's illegal from a federal perspective, in some states, it's very much so legal. And some companies are cannabis friendly. So, but yes, drug activity, or what we consider here in the United, y'all know how I feel about that. That's a medicinal. So, it just kind of depends. But yes, anything that is going to hurt them from getting the job, you should check. If their LinkedIn profile is funky and you have a resume writing service, then offer to rewrite their resume. Rewrite their LinkedIn profile for $50 or something like that. Or tell them to update their LinkedIn profile. But companies are looking immediately. They look at the resume, they look at the LinkedIn profile, and they look at your Facebook. And as I was saying, again, some companies want to see that Facebook. So maybe for some people, you encourage them to have a personal Facebook page and a professional Facebook page, one where it's only to employers and one where they have their friends and their family. And I think I've told you guys, I had a client that reached out to me that wanted to do business with me, and I gave them my Facebook fan page. And the client, and this was like 4 years ago. Now a client would be very I would be very weary, although my stuff is wide open. I'm pretty open about how I feel about everything. But maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, he was like, I don't want your Facebook fan page, D. I want to know who you are as a person, good, bad, ugly, and indifferent. So I gave him my page and we did business. He was comfortable. And one of the things he said he liked was the fact that I was real. He's like, you're very authentic. So I can live with that. At least I know what I'm getting up front. Not all hiring managers or clients feel that way, however. So sometimes you got to have a personal, sometimes you got to have a professional. Encourage your candidates to do so. There are a lot of people losing job opportunities because of their social networks. So your job as a recruiter is to make sure that you check it out, and so that they do not get rejected based on their social network, okay? If a candidate, I think I already said this, but I'll just really quickly, if a candidate has gone through the interview process and the hiring manager says, I'm not interested, make sure that you are, you find out why from the hiring manager again. And if there are some things that you can share immediately that are not tension friendly, then share them. Oh, he said we're looking for someone with a little more experience in Java, or we're looking for someone with a little more APAR experience, whatever. That's fine. But if he starts talking about anything that has to do with them personally, anything that has to do with their social profile, I still kind of go back. I don't touch on that. I just had a very bad experience one time, and I gave candidate honest feedback, and he tried to sue me, the staffing agency I was working for at the time, the hiring manager. He was like, y'all not about to reject me on the strength of this. Some things we have to keep to ourselves, right? In order to keep the process going, in order to keep the relationship going. And then they become flags as well in the way the candidate responds to that rejection. You're learning that candidate, is this somebody that you want to represent in your company? Renee said, I tried to tell candidates to use a nickname or another name on their personal page and their real name on their professional page. That's fine as well. It's great advice, actually. Also, really quickly, while we're on that topic about names, I would encourage you, if you have a candidate who has an email address that is ratchet, I said the R word, that is ratchet, that is like Big Booby 22 or something like that, encourage them to change their Gmail address or their email address, because again, the client sees a lot of that information over time, and you definitely don't want them submitting resumes under these crazy email address names and different things like that. So I hope this was super duper helpful for you. Many times it's very challenging to reject a candidate and still keep the relationship going. I hope these tips and tools were somewhat helpful for you. What I would like to do, people are on Facebook watching this, my Staffingpreneurs, but this is also being recorded live on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, or if you want to follow me on YouTube, please go to our YouTube channel. I think it's just D Williams GA, which is me, and subscribe. And like the video, thumbs up, and then also share. And then also share this video if you're on Facebook with a friend, because I think this is something that not just staffingpreneurs should know, but also for people who are looking for opportunities, career opportunities. They should know how the system works on the back end so that they can better prepare themselves. I really appreciate you guys. I want you to have an absolutely amazing Friday. I am on my way to staffingstartup.net in about an hour or so, and I will be recording a series of articles, of news segments, and a couple of actual live training classes there to get revved up and amped up for staffingstartup.tv. So if you'd like to join me there, YouTube, just type into YouTube, staffing, one word, startup, one word, TV, one word, and our channel will come up. And I encourage you to subscribe. We need 100 subscribers in order for me to snab the name Staffing Startup TV on YouTube. So please subscribe. Leave comments below on everything that I post. The more comments that you add, the further we go up in ranking. Like. I absolutely love you. Really quickly before I leave, we had another comment. Hey, LaShawn. She says, I would not say any feedback that is personal because I don't want them to think that anyone is discriminating. That's correct. And of course, unfortunately, there's a ton of discrimination going on in this world today. So hiring managers discriminate in many different ways, based on your hair, based on your skin tone, based on your weight, based on your earrings, what you have on, how you talk, how you breathe, how you smell. There's all types of discrimination out there, to be honest with you. And so you've just got to be mindful. But it's also your job to touch bases with that candidate a little bit later and to help them, to make sure that they know not to wear such thick lipstick. I had a young lady who interviewed, her lipstick was so thick when she talked, it like landed on her teeth. It was so frustrating as the interviewer, because all I looked at was her teeth. You know, I'm like, I couldn't even get through the interview, right? So I only could imagine how the hiring manager would take that would take that as well. I've had some crazy interviews. I had a lady who was dressed to a T. Then she had like pantyhose and stockings on. Pantyhose and sandals on, but not like cute sandals. Like, I don't know. And I knew that for the client that I was sending her to, they were 100% professional. It wouldn't have made it. I've had people pull their Bibles out in the middle of an interview and start reading scriptures. I have had people come on their menstrual cycles and soil my chairs, plural, okay? During an interview, I'm talking plural, like get up from one, go to another one, get up from another, go to, and leaving the spots there. I have had candidates interview, and I had one candidate twice. This happened kind of twice. I had one candidate go for an interview, hit it off with the boss, and they went in the back and started smoking weed. And then I had another candidate that was actually working for a client and got caught smoking weed with his boss in the back. This is over the years, so many, you will be very surprised at, who people are once you start going through this interviewing process. So I say those things to say to you, like, don't freak out, because you never know what you're going to get. Okay, you never know what you're going to get, ever. I had a guy who was an executive, and he was going for a job with the government, and he wore a full piece suit, which was awesome. them. Now, mind you, this is in George Bush Jr.'s day, and showed up for a government contract position, director of business development in Northern Virginia, with a full-piece suit, three-piece suit, sandals, the flip-flop sandals, a ponytail, and a beard. Like, he was like from the group like ZZ Top or something. I think they're called like ZZ something. Like, it was binockers. The hiring manager, when he came in, like, called me immediately and was like, we're about to fire you. And I was like, what happened? And he's like, why did you send this crazy guy here? And he was in Richmond. I was in, DC. At that time, we didn't have FaceTime. We didn't have all of these, luxuries to be able to see a candidate prior to sending them. So he had an excellent resume, he had excellent phone, mannerisms, and he was an executive. So I never thought in a million years that it would go down like that, but it did. And they fired me. The client fired me. I lost the client because of that, because they felt like I didn't screen my candidate. You don't meet your candidates before you send them over to the hiring manager, is what they said. And so, since we're talking about rejections, and I got to go because this is supposed to be like 5 minutes, but since we're talking about rejections, you should be meeting with every one of your candidates. And I know the majority of you are not. So don't fake like you are. Like, if you are submitting a candidate to my splits board or to any splits board, the least you can do is to get them on FaceTime or Skype or where have you if you can't meet them in person. That's at the bare minimum. If you're meeting someone, if you're interviewing someone and they have never met, you've got to make sure you see what they look like. I'm just saying. It's like just to make sure that they even present themselves in a way that is suitable to you and that represents your company in a positive way. It takes 5 minutes to do a Skype interview, or, it just get them on the line, okay? Get a video and do something great, like record your videos, right? So the hiring manager can kind of see, with their permission, of course, who this person really is, but just don't submit a candidate without interviewing them. They could have like X-Men clause. That happened to one of my they weren't Staffingpreneurs, actually one of my recruiters at one of my corporate clients, she went to, the guy was a psycho, basically. And they interviewed over the phone. She scheduled an additional phone interview, and then he showed up to the office. So he didn't even follow instructions. And when he showed up, he had like this clown tie on. He had nails that were like 6 inches. And she said she was kind of like, what the heck? And she almost sent them to Hyundai. And she's like, I would have lost that client, if we wouldn't have showed up. And I didn't even have a face-to-face with this guy. So I'm glad that he showed up, but at the same time, it's kind of scary. So, so just know it's imperative for you to interview your candidates, and it's imperative for you to be strategic in the way that you're following up with your candidates and providing feedback on the rejection. It's imperative that you're being strategic and you're thinking it through. I hope this was helpful. If it was helpful, put some taps, tap me. What are you? Oh man, did I turn it around? I turned it around. I got excited. I actually tapped. If this was helpful and you're on YouTube, please comment, tell me if you've experienced anything crazy. If this was helpful on Facebook, with thumbs up, hearts, smiley faces, laughs, wows. I don't even care. Just let me know how you felt about it. Please like this post. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please share this video. I absolutely love you guys. I hope this was helpful today. Renasha, this was for you. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye. Bye.